Now, who here is familiar with the names George Wallace, Strom Thurmond, Medgar Evans? Today I'm going to talk about pro-segregationists who oppose the civil rights movement. I decided to take this topic because most of the time when people discuss the civil rights movement, it's romanticized in a way that seems effortless, and all the civil rights had to do is peacefully march, and people start changing their ideas. Well, here, I actually looked in research a little bit and found out that it was actually pretty fragile, and all the progress those leaders worked hard for could have been crushed at any moment. So today I'm going to talk about the actions that the pro-segregation people performed in opposition to the movement. And I'm going to divide it into people and politicians. For clarity, the politicians are the ones who were elected with legislative and or executive power. And now I'm going to start with the people. I'd like to start off with the guy you're probably most thinking of, Martin Luther King Jr. And one thing to remember is that one of his famous writings was called Letter from a Birmingham Jail, in which he declared that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I bring that up because he was arrested and he paid the ultimate price for it. And in a book called Race Relations in America by Thomas J. Davis, he mentioned that King was calm, marching into bloody, dog-biting police assaults, continuing to preach Christian love. And has to be noted that he and his followers were branded as fire-breathing radicals. He was also assassinated in 1968. And I want to talk about the sit-ins, where protesters starting in Greensboro, North Carolina, went to Woolworths in an all-white section demanding to be served. And before they got arrested, which at best they had condiments spread all over their shirts, and at worst they had cigarette burns on their skins. And then there was the Freedom Riders. They drove a bus down through the Deep South challenging Jim Crow laws. And when they were driving down, it was often attacked and burned. And in Birmingham, in one specific arson, the police did nothing to help the people escaping. And I had a book called Creating Black America by Nell Irvin Parker. And page 269, she gives a list of miscellaneous things that happened, including Birmingham police attacking children with dogs and hoses in the protests in May 1963. Medgar Evans, a veteran of the civil rights leader, was killed in June 1963, but his killers were let off by all-white juries twice. In September 1963, there was the 16th Street bombing, where 4 children were killed at a Baptist church. In June 1964, 3 men, Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, were abducted by Klansmen and killed. February 1965, Jimmy Lee Jackson was killed by police. And 1968 in Orangeburg, South Carolina, 3 students ages 17, 18, and 19 were killed by the police while protesting a bowling alley's segregation practices. Next, I want to talk about the politicians and how they reacted. There was Strom Thurmond, who was notorious for his stance of pro-segregation. In 1948, President Harry S. Truman desegregated the military by executive order. In response, Thurmond and a bunch of his Southern colleagues split out to form the Dixiecrats on a states' rights ticket, which in this case pretty much means segregation. And they won Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and South Carolina. 16 years later, he tried to talk to death the 1964 Civil Rights Act, so that there was no one in Congress to vote on it. Next, I want to talk about Walter George. Most people, I don't expect many people to know about him. I didn't know about him until I started reading these books, but he helped lay out the segregation ideology in the Southern Manifesto. He denounced the decision of Brown v. Board of Education and claimed it disrupted amicable relations between white and Negro races. Anybody who believes there was amicable relations before Brown versus Board is pretty much delusional to the point where any change seems threatening. Next, I want to talk about George Wallace, probably the most notorious segregationist of all time. He can be described in 7 words in his inaugural speech for Alabama governor: segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. And there's this picture I want to show that pretty much sums up the opposition. This one right here. As you can see, George Wallace is standing right in front of the University of Alabama after the federal government ordered him to desegregate. He has armed guards by his side, and he's arguing with a marshal right there. Basically, he was never willing to desegregate and went to any length to do so. In this speech, I discussed the opposition that the civil rights league faced. Hopefully, I shared that simple romantic image of protesters facing little adversity for change and the relative ease it was to change people's minds. I do this because most of us are in college right now, and a lot of us, myself included, have strong political opinions. I want you to know, if you really want to bring change, you have to be willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice, which will be death, if necessary. And I'd like to close with a statement by Martin Luther King: "A man who will not die for anything is not fit to live." That's it.